This is a dramatized story inspired by real debt situations. For educational and entertainment purposes only. Not legal or financial advice.
$89,000. I keep saying that number out loud because even now, 2 years later, it still doesn't feel real. I was standing in the hospital hallway in my scrubs. I had just finished a 12-hour shift, and the billing coordinator handed me a printout. 4 pages, single-spaced. My wife was still in recovery, and I was supposed to be relieved she was alive. And I was. God, I was. But I was also staring at a number that was bigger than our annual income. My name is Marcus. I'm a registered nurse at a regional hospital outside Columbus, Ohio. I've spent 17 years helping people through their worst moments. I know how to stay calm under pressure. I know how to read a situation and make fast decisions. But nothing in my training prepared me for what came next. Let me take you back to March, 2 years ago. My wife, Diane, was 41. She'd been having abdominal pain for about 3 weeks. We kept thinking it was stress. She was a middle school art teacher, 30 kids, no budget, end of the school year bearing down. We told ourselves she just needed rest. Then, one Tuesday night, I came home from a night shift and found her on the bathroom floor. She couldn't stand up. I called 911 myself. It turned out to be a ruptured ovarian cyst that had triggered internal bleeding. She needed emergency surgery. She spent 9 days in the ICU. And then she spent 6 weeks at home recovering, which meant she missed work, which meant she lost pay, which meant our household income dropped by almost 40% overnight. We had insurance. I want to be clear about that because people always ask. We had insurance through my employer, a PPO plan with a $4,200 deductible and a $9,000 out-of-pocket maximum per person per year. We thought that was our safety net. What we didn't understand, and what I think most Americans don't understand until it's too late, is that out-of-pocket maximum doesn't mean everything above that number gets covered. It means everything above that number that qualifies as a covered in-network expense. Out-of-network providers, balance billing, non-covered services, those don't count toward your cap. Diane's surgeon was in-network. The anesthesiologist was not. The assistant surgeon who was called in, not in-network. 3 of the specialists who consulted during her ICU stay, not in-network. We received separate bills from the hospital, the surgical group, the anesthesiology group, a radiology company, a pathology lab, and 2 individual physicians. Each one a separate entity. Each one with its own billing department. Each one with its own payment deadlines. The total, when I finally sat down and added everything up on a yellow legal pad at our kitchen table at 2 a.m, $89,400. Our insurance paid $31,000. We owed $58,400 directly. But that wasn't the whole picture, because while Diane was recovering, we put everything on credit cards, groceries, her prescriptions, and there were a lot of them. The physical therapy she needed 3 times a week, the co-pays for her follow-up appointments. By the time she went back to work in May, we had added another $14,200 in credit card debt to the pile. We already had about $17,000 on 2 cards before any of this happened. So the real number, the number I finally wrote down at the top of that legal pad and circled 3 times because I didn't want to believe it, was $89,600, counting everything. Medical debt, credit cards, and the personal loan I'd taken out in April just to keep us from missing the mortgage. I made $72,000 a year as a nurse. Diane made $48,000 as a teacher when she was working. Together, we were doing okay. We had a house with a $1,640 mortgage, 2 car payments. Mine was $387, hers was $319. We had a daughter, Kayla, who was 8 years old and completely unaware that her parents were drowning. For the first 2 months after Diane got home, I held it together. I was running on autopilot. Pay the mortgage, buy the groceries, get Diane to therapy, help Kayla with homework, go to work, come home. Repeat. I wasn't sleeping more than 4 hours a night. I was running on coffee and adrenaline and the deep, desperate belief that if I just kept moving, everything would somehow work out. The call started in June. The anesthesiology group was the first. They had called once in May, and I'd sent a check for $200, which was all I could manage. Apparently, that wasn't enough to prevent them from sending the account to a collection agency. So, by June, I was getting calls from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail the first few times. Then I picked up. The voice on the other end was flat, professional, completely indifferent to the fact that the reason I owed this money was because my wife almost died. Mr. Harris, this is a call from Meridian Recovery Associates regarding an outstanding balance of $4,180 owed to Columbus Anesthesia Partners. This is an attempt to collect a debt. Any information obtained will be used for that purpose. I hung up, and then I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot for 20 minutes before my shift, just staring at the steering wheel. Diane didn't know how bad it was. I'd been managing the bills. I always managed the bills. And I'd made a decision early on that I wasn't going to tell her the full picture until she was stronger. She'd gone through major surgery. She was still healing. She was dealing with fatigue and pain and anxiety about going back to work. I told myself I was protecting her. But the truth is, I was also ashamed. I was a nurse. I understood healthcare. I was supposed to be the person who knew how this system worked, and I had still let this happen to us. I started making mistakes. The first one was the balance transfer. One of our credit cards offered 0% interest for 15 months if I transferred a balance. I moved $8,000 from our highest interest card to get some breathing room. What I didn't fully account for was the 3% transfer fee, $240 charged immediately. And the fact that 15 months is not very long when you're already struggling to make minimum payments on everything else. I was kicking the can down the road and calling it a strategy. The second mistake was the payday loan. I know exactly what those are. I've seen the literature. I've talked to patients in financial crisis. And I still did it. In August, when we were 3 weeks from payday and the electric bill was past due and Kayla needed school supplies and I had already overdrafted our checking account once, I walked into a payday lending place and borrowed $800. The fee was $120, due in 2 weeks. When I couldn't pay it back in full, I rolled it over, and then I rolled it over again. That $800 cost me nearly $400 in fees before I finally paid it off by borrowing from my mother, which is its own kind of shame. The third mistake, and this is the one I regret the most, was the 401k withdrawal. In September, one of the medical billing groups threatened to sue for the balance. I panicked. I withdrew $11,000 from my retirement account to pay down the largest bills. What I forgot, or maybe what I just didn't let myself think about, was the tax consequence. Because I was under 59 and a half, I owed a 10% early withdrawal penalty, plus the amount counted as ordinary income for the year. That $11,000 ended up costing me closer to $14,000 when tax season came. I had solved one problem and created another one. By October, I was hiding the mail, literally putting envelopes from collection agencies and billing departments in the bottom drawer of my desk in the spare room. I told myself I'd deal with them later. What I was really doing was trying to make them not exist. Diane found the drawer in November. She came to find a stamp, and she found 6 months of unopened bills instead. I still remember the look on her face. She didn't yell. She just stood there holding a stack of envelopes, and she looked at me the way I've seen family members look at patients when they realize the situation is worse than they were told. Like the ground had shifted underneath her. "Marcus, how much?" I told her. All of it. The medical bills, the credit cards, the payday loan, the 401k withdrawal, the calls from collection agencies. I told her I was sorry. I told her I thought I could fix it before it got this bad. She sat down at the kitchen table and was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "We need to talk to someone who actually knows what to do, because clearly we don't." She wasn't wrong. A colleague of mine at the hospital had mentioned, months earlier, that he'd gone through something similar after a car accident and had worked with a nonprofit credit counseling agency. I'd filed that information away and forgotten about it in the chaos. The next morning, Diane found the number and called. The nonprofit credit counseling agency we contacted was a member of the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, the NFCC. The counselor we were assigned, a woman named Patrice, scheduled a call with both of us within 3 days. She asked us to have everything ready: all our bills, account numbers, balances, interest rates, monthly minimum payments, and our take-home income. For the first time since March, someone was asking us to look at the whole picture at once instead of running from it piece by piece. The call took almost 2 hours. Patrice walked us through everything methodically. No judgment, no panic, just numbers. Here's what our picture looked like. $19,200 in credit card debt across 3 cards with interest rates between 22 and 27%. $58,400 in outstanding medical bills, some already in collections, an $11,000 personal loan at 14% that I'd taken in April. Monthly minimum payments across everything, not including the mortgage and car payments, totaled $1,890. Our take-home after taxes was $7,600 a month combined. After the mortgage, 2 car payments, utilities, groceries, and Kayla's expenses, we had about $100 left. We were $790 short every single month just to tread water. Patrice laid out our options. She explained them clearly, without pushing us toward any one of them. And I want to share what she told us because I think it's the kind of information most people don't get until they're already in crisis. The first option was a debt management plan, or DMP. Through a nonprofit credit counseling agency, you make one consolidated monthly payment to the agency, and they distribute it to your creditors. In many cases, creditors will agree to reduce or eliminate interest as part of the arrangement. It doesn't hurt your credit score the way other options do, but it requires consistent payments over 3 to 5 years and typically doesn't cover medical debt or secured debt like your mortgage. The second option was debt settlement. A company negotiates with your creditors to accept less than what you owe. It sounds appealing, but Patrice was honest with us about the risks. Debt settlement companies often charge significant fees. The process can take years. Your credit score takes a major hit, and any forgiven debt may be counted as taxable income by the IRS. She told us to be very careful about for-profit debt settlement companies and to read everything before signing. The third option was bankruptcy. She explained the 2 types that are most relevant for people in our situation. Chapter 7. Bankruptcy is sometimes called liquidation bankruptcy. It can discharge most unsecured debts, credit cards, medical bills, personal loans, relatively quickly, usually within 3 to 6 months. But there are income limits. You have to pass what's called the means test, which compares your income to the median income in your state, and some assets may be at risk depending on your state's exemption laws. It stays on your credit report for 10 years. Chapter 13. Bankruptcy is different. Instead of liquidating, you propose a repayment plan, usually 3 to 5 years, to pay back some or all of your debts under court protection. It's often used by people who have assets they want to protect, like a home they're at risk of losing to foreclosure, or who don't qualify for Chapter 7 because their income is too high. Chapter 13 stays on your credit report for 7 years. Patrice was careful to remind us, and I'll remind you now, that she was a credit counselor, not a bankruptcy attorney. She encouraged us, if we were considering bankruptcy, to consult with a licensed bankruptcy attorney. Many offer free initial consultations. That advice is worth taking. For us, the path that made the most sense was a combination approach. We enrolled in a debt management plan for our credit card debt. Patrice's agency was able to negotiate reduced interest rates on all 3 cards. Our highest went from 27% down to 6%. Our monthly payment across the 3 cards consolidated to $620. versus the $880 we'd been paying in minimums. That difference, $270 a month, gave us more breathing room for the first time since March. For the medical debt, which credit counseling doesn't directly cover, Patrice connected us with a medical billing advocate. This is something I had no idea existed. A medical billing advocate reviews your bills for errors, which are extremely common, and can negotiate directly with hospitals and billing departments on your behalf. Our advocate found $6,800 in billing errors across multiple accounts, procedures billed twice, an insurance denial that should have been appealed, a charge for a service that was never actually performed. After corrections and negotiation, our total medical debt came down from $58,400 to $41,200. The hospital, when we approached them directly about financial hardship, put us on an interest-free payment plan at $300 a month. We also consulted with a bankruptcy attorney just to understand all our options. He confirmed that we would likely qualify for Chapter 7 given our debt-to-income situation after Diane's medical leave. But given that we wanted to protect our home and were already making progress through the DMP and the medical payment plan, he agreed that bankruptcy was probably not the right choice for us at that time. He also reviewed the collection accounts and confirmed that 2 of them had already passed the statute of limitations for lawsuits in Ohio, meaning those creditors couldn't sue us anymore, even though the debt technically still existed. That was the moment I finally slept more than 4 hours in a row, knowing that the worst-case scenario, a lawsuit, a garnishment, losing our home, was not as imminent as I had feared. I'm not going to tell you everything is fixed. It isn't. We are 26 months into a 48-month debt management plan. We have 2 more years of $620 monthly payments. We're still sending $300 a month to the hospital. Our credit scores took a hit when the collection accounts were reported. Mine dropped from 710 to 618, Diane's from 681 to 599. But in the past year, as we've made consistent payments and the collection accounts have been resolved, both of our FICO scores have started to climb back. Mine is at 664 now. Diane's is at 641. They're moving in the right direction. We had to sell one of the cars and go down to 1 vehicle for 8 months. That was hard. We had to cancel vacations and subscriptions and say no to things that felt small but added up. We had a family meeting with Kayla. She was 9 by then. And we told her, in age-appropriate terms, that our family was working through something difficult and we were going to come out the other side together. She took it better than I expected. Kids are more resilient than we give them credit for. What I want you to take from this, if you're watching this because you're in a version of this situation, is that the shame of asking for help cost me months of my life and thousands of dollars in bad decisions. Every payday loan, every panicked withdrawal, every unopened envelope in that bottom drawer made things worse, not better. Getting help, real help, from a nonprofit credit counselor, from a medical billing advocate, from a licensed bankruptcy attorney, that's what started to turn things around. If you're dealing with medical bills, call the hospital's billing department directly and ask about financial assistance programs or charity care. Many hospitals are required by law to offer these programs and they don't advertise them. Ask specifically. If you're overwhelmed by multiple debts, contact the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, the NFCC, and ask about credit counseling services. Many of them are free or low cost. If you think bankruptcy might be on the table, talk to a licensed attorney. Many offer free consultations. And please consult a licensed professional before making any major financial or legal decisions. Every situation is different. What worked for us may not be right for you. Diane is healthy, fully recovered. She went back to teaching and she loves it. Kayla is 10 now, and she asked me last week if we were done being stressed about money. I told her we're working on it. And for the first time in 2 years, I meant it. Get the free debt checklist in the description. It covers medical bill negotiation, how to find nonprofit credit counseling, what to ask a bankruptcy attorney, and the first steps you should take when the numbers stop adding up. Link is below, and if this story helped you, subscribe. We put out new stories every week for people navigating real financial pressure in the real American middle class.